like Katy Perry? Why not? It's one of those songs that I've been thinking about for a while, and when I play covers, it's one of those things that I like to do with taking a song that you wouldn't expect a male to sing and doing it, coming up with an arrangement that works for male vocal and actually pulls it away from the original. So then people who are listening to it go, man, it sounds familiar, but I'm not exactly sure what that is. And then you hit the chorus and they go, man, I know what that is. So that's what I wanted to do with this one. So yeah, the original was in C, I think, and basically what I did was I changed that into E, and then I had my guitar tuned down half a step, so it's actually E flat that I'm playing in with the chord positions being based around E, and completely changed that groove up. Yeah, because the original drum thing is that that heartbeat thing. And whenever I heard that drum beat, I wanted to do that. And the same as the original thing, and run around in the jungle and stuff like that. So yeah, I thought I'd ditch that and just completely change it up and start from scratch to the point where I think I listened to the song maybe 2 or 3 times, got a basic structure, and then just started doing it, and to the point where I think I completely changed the melody for the pre-chorus, but I didn't realise that until I actually finished it and actually uploaded the video. I didn't sit strict on a chord structure. What I did was play around a lot with the chords and try and construct the melody, or basically construct a melody on the guitar that's what's the word? That supports the main vocal melody at the same time. But in any case, yeah, what I did was I started off with just straight open chords with the E on the F sharp. In that case, I played a suspended 4, so it's an E sus4 on F sharp to the C sharp minor. And I don't think at all I ever actually barred that shape. I never actually played that G sharp as part of the chord. I actually kept the E string open, so I'd have that double E. I really like the sound of that, and I do that a lot. And then the last chord being the A, so I'd either use an A suspended second or an A add 9 or both. I basically wanted to take concepts that I talk about in the first season of Lick Factory, and then there was the chord lessons, and apply that to a song to give a working example of the way that I basically think about chords. The first season I do a lot of things about a lot of lessons on chord replacements and substituting basic progressions to turn it into something else where the guitar part becomes more interesting. And this whole arrangement was basically an example of how I do that. Because as I said, the basic progression is just an E to an E on the F sharp, to a C sharp minor, to an A. That's the basic progression in this key. But even then, straight away, what I'd do is I'd play the E major to an E suspended 4th, changing the 3rd to the 4th with an F sharp bass, to a C sharp minor, in which case I'd also use the open strings there rather than barring it and adding that G sharp in to get that sound. I tend to do that, to an A suspended 2nd or an A add 9, just to break the harmony up. So in the intro and the first verse, that I'm playing very simple, and using filler licks to fill some of the gaps now and again, and also some arpeggiated picking to do that. Yeah, I pretty much just improvised it on the recording, and should have written down what I did, because again, when I got to the video shoot, it was one of those things where I went, oh, what did I do again? Yeah, the pre-chorus, I wanted to really change it up a bit. This is where I wanted to get some building happening, because I knew that when I hit the chorus, like the chorus was actually the first section that I came up with, based around that E major 9, and also that. To get that sort of groove to it. To me, it sort of reminds me of a jazzy bossa type of thing. which is which may not be the case, but that's what it reminded me of anyway. But yeah, I had that whole chorus worked out. Yeah, so I had to get something that was going to complement that part and build up to it, because I also thought that going from the single strums up to this really cool groove, there was no filler, there was nothing to join those sections together. So I actually really built this as completely separate sections. So what I did with the pre-chorus then was it was all about building from that position there up to this E major 9, and where I could start using that version of the C sharp minor that I'm using in the chorus. So what I basically did was, in the first instance of the chorus, in the pre-chorus, I actually have that build that's going up from the E to a version of E with that chord in between. Now that one, I'm basically thinking of that as a B, but the notes in it actually make it an E major 7 suspended second when it's on that E bass. Because I've got the 5th, the 7th, and the 2nd of that E. So I'm going from the E major triad to the E major 7 sus2 to an E major again in a different inversion. That first position there has the 3rd, 5th, and the 1st on the lowest 3 strings, and then I've got the 5th, the 1st, and the 3rd on the next position. I'm basically using that bass as a pivot point, and then I've got a filler lick, which brings me up to that B, which makes that chord there an E5, an E power chord. I've got the tonic, the B being the 5th, and then the tonic again, and then the 5th here as well. So it's just a 1-5-1 chord. Now I come down to that C sharp minor, where I'm basically doing that from that third, I'll shut that lick in on the bass, where I'm going from the 3rd to the 2nd, back to the 3rd, and then up to the 7th, the flattened 7th. And when I do it the same thing, when I repeat the lick on the A, with the A in the bass, it becomes an A8-9. So it can play the same notes. That's C sharp minor to an A8-9. And so I took advantage of that, and it's another thing I like to do a lot, using repetitive licks over different bass notes. Yeah, the second half of the pre-chorus started off with repeating what I did in the first half. But then basically what I did was I did want to build up to that C sharp minor up here, which I was going to use in the chorus. I wanted to introduce it a bit earlier. So I basically used that same intro, and then because I know that's an E5, I actually changed position there from an E5 to the E5 up here, and then I could introduce the beginnings of that chord there, because basically when I do it in this position, I add the 7th. I'm adding the 7th into it, the major 7th, so it becomes an E major 7 to an E power chord again. Then I change to the C sharp minor. Now in this position I end up with the C sharp in the bass, and the highest note there being the 9, the 7th, and then that's the 3rd there, the minor 3rd. And then when I pick down that, I change that, so I bring the 9th up to the 4th, so it ends up a C sharp minor 7, suspended 4th, add 9. Yeah, it's one of those crazy substitutions I like. And then at the end, I basically keep the same position again and just hit the A. So in this case I end up with the tonic, and then the 5th, the 9th, and the 3rd. So that's basically an A9 again. So it's one of those things, like you'll see there, although there's some pretty full-on names, the positions themselves are actually quite similar. And that's one of the things I like to do when experimenting with chords, and is the basis of my chord substitution thought process. Alright, the chorus starts off with that E major 9. So I've got the tonic there, the E, then it goes to the 3rd, the G sharp, and then I've got the 7th there, the major 7th, the D sharp, and then the ninth being the F sharp. Now in this chord there's no fifth, but it's something I talk a lot about during the Blue Factory courses. The fifth is one of those notes that can be omitted from a chord quite easily with no hassle. Alright, so I'm basically playing that E major 9, and the picking pattern is hitting the bass note, then the rest of the chords. So I'm actually using, I'm picking the ninth, the seventh, and the third, so the B, G, and D strings, and pivoting between the E, the tonic. And then basically when I'm changing chords, I try and keep that same picking pattern together. Starting off with that E major 9, and then I basically jump up to the to an E up in this position again, which is an E power chord, which enables me to play around with it a bit. So I've got that fifth there, and it becomes an E suspended fourth, down to an E major triad, back to the E suspended fourth. So it basically gives me a little bit of room to move. Yeah, so you can really muck around with different notes to create different flavours there. Jump up to that C sharp minor, which is using the same shape that I used in the pre-chorus, which as I said, the pre-chorus is what I came up with first. So I'm basically using that that shape there, where the B there is the seventh, and I'm bringing that down to the sixth, down to the five in C sharp minor, which is a repeat of the same lick that's in E. But in E it would be the fifth down to the fourth to the third. So it's 5, 4, 3 with the E in the bass. Then when the C sharp goes to the bass, it becomes the seven, the seventh, the sixth, and the 5. And then I'll finish that off with just a harmony line in thirds on A. Again, one of those things that I like to do a lot of, playing around with harmony. And then I basically repeat the whole pattern. But then I jump up to that change there, the major seventh on the E, set me up for that C sharp minor, where it becomes C sharp minor seventh, add 9, where that note there is the actual 9. And then finish it off with an A harmony using sixths. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, it's using the 6th degree up, which I find that really bluesy. I quite like that. That's that whole refrain where I'm singing the woes. In hindsight, it probably was one of those things that I didn't think too much about, because I knew that the groove, I wanted to change it up again. I actually did the guitar part before I actually thought of how I was going to sing that at the same time. And that actually becomes quite a nightmare to sing and play together. So it's basically an E major 9, and I'm basically just removing my pinky on that shape, and that makes it an E6 add 9. And that's just a C sharp minor 7, bringing it down to the suspended second, and then finishing off with the A harmony line in thirds, which is the same lick that I used in the chorus, just to keep it consistent. Finishing off with the E, and then and that's just a straight C sharp minor pentatonic lick, just to try and bring it back a little bit from all these exotic sounding chords. The solo was actually completely improvised, and what I basically was thinking was a combination of two things. Like the last solo for Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, I played it around a lot with Lydian, and was taking a very Lydian approach to this scale. So this one I wanted to keep very confined, very normal, I guess, or more less exotic, mainly because the chords are so intense with the way that I constructed it. There's a lot of movement in the chords, so I wanted to keep the solo relatively simple in terms of scale choices, but have it something that you could that could be sung like the rest of the guitar part. So basically what I did is whenever I'm thinking like that, I tend to try and base my licks around, I'm thinking pentatonic, although I might not actually be executing that, but I'm thinking that as my main notes and trying to land around those areas. Mainly because then I don't get too busy. If I start thinking scales, I tend to start to shred a bit, and there's no real need for it all the time, especially in a solo like this. So basically what I did was start off thinking as a root 6 pentatonic in C sharp minor. Although straight away I've ditched that whole thing and just gone to a descending major scale in thirds in E, and then just resolving them. Nothing overly brain surgery about that, apart from that initial lick. The rest of it's pretty steady. And then I'd come into a lick, which is basically just running straight up an E major scale. And then I changed my thought process to jump back into a C sharp minor pentatonic again, but based on a position 4. So I'm thinking on the thinking off the tonic being on the 5th string. So I'm basically thinking in that position. And basically what I did on this one is I wanted to experiment a little bit with making a bit of tension between major and minor. So although I'm playing a C sharp minor pentatonic, which is basically the same notes as an E major or an E major pentatonic, what I did was on that bend, I actually resolved to the minor very quickly. And then bring it back down and finish on the 5th for that build up on the B. But again, that section there, it starts off with the with just a whole. I was actually thinking to try and get a bit of staccato in the solo. So I'm basically coming up from the tonic up to the next string. Tonic on the tonic being on the G string, so it's basically the 7th up to the 1. Then I'm bending and actually take it outside the E major scale altogether to play that D, because in the key of E major that should be D sharp, which would sound correct. But I wanted to get a bit more minor. And that lick that's just a resolving lick. And another rake, another sweep to bring it up to that high B. And have to then bring it down to resolve to that F sharp. And in all honesty, that's probably not a note I would have picked, but I remember when I was recording it, that B, I knew that B was coming up, and it just sort of, I found myself there and I went, oh crap, and just had to jump down to it. But yeah, it ended up sounding good, so I kept it like that. Yeah, at the end, I started just ripping it up a bit at the end, starting off with that, with an octave run, and then after that, I really had no idea what I played. I was basically just doodling to create some movement in the background, whereas the main part is still obviously the vocals and the guitar harmony part, the rhythm guitar part. The other stuff is just to create a little bit of flavor, a little bit of texture in the background. It's something that I started doing with Syndicate actually when we were recording the album. I remember our producer Brandon Friesen would sit there and go, okay, just give me a solo out at the end, and it's something that I started doing, and it's actually something I've done on every track I've recorded ever since. I may not necessarily use it all, or it may not all end up in the final take, but I always do it just to have it there, and then so if it needs something more to lift, then I've got this solo there. So I basically did something like that on this just when I got to the end, because it had the claps and everything, and it was all feeling happy. And I just went, oh bugger it, one more track, and just started soloing, and then that octave run that I started with, thinking being very Pat Metheny, John McLaughlin and stuff. So I ended up just keeping it because I like that octave run. And the next song I've got something from that's a little bit heavier. I've actually taken a Linkin Park song and done the same type of thing to it, but I've kept it a little bit more chilled on this one. I didn't want to go too full on with the chords because at the end of the day it is a rock song and I wanted to keep the essence of the original track. But yeah, it's been a good one to do, and I'm trying something a bit different with the video, so I'm looking forward to showing you that.